Ladies and gentlemen, ATDF everything in that shelf presentation. You're now rocking with TDF everything. Spoiled rotten.
Spoiler alert.
Welcome back, everybody.
Hey.
It's me, Daniel,
And it's Ban
on Spoiled Rotten.
on that shelf.
I have to say, I had no idea what I was about to say when I was counting down. I was like, well, we're
No, we
here.
did a cold start. We did,
Yeah, it's just like, you're here. Boom, let's go.
Yeah. We're reviewing Constantine. Of course, this was done. Let me just pull this up. 2005, starring Keanu Reeves, and directed by Francis Lawrence. And it's obviously.
I realize I like two of his movies. I think.
Yep.
I like Hunger Games: Catching Fire.
Okay.
And whatever Will Smith movie he did, I don't remember. I think he did iRobot or
He did I Am Legend.
I Am Legend. That's the
Yeah.
one.
I love I Am Legend. Great film.
Yeah, that makes more sense. I Am Legend and Catching Fire. Those are good. So that should tell you how this is gonna go. Also, I didn't realize how connected to Hellboy this movie is. Like, they were supposed to basically come out within months of each other, and it's the reason this is called Constantine instead of what it should be called, which is Hellblazer, because they're like, well, Hellboy's gonna come out and we're Hellblazer, we shouldn't confuse people.
Yeah, they were also thinking and this is like a horror film that I love, that they were like, oh, it's going to sound too much like Hellraiser, which is
I didn't read that, but that makes more sense than people being confused between a big red guy and Keanu Reeves.
Yeah, like Hellboy and Hellraiser. I'm like, there's not that big of a...
I think it's just because it was coming out so closely. And
I think so.
And maybe you don't want people being like, hey, one for Hellboy instead of one for Hellblazer.
Yeah, but it also, I think a lot of this, and so a lot of this is going to be a discussion of biblical kind of stuff, in which case I'm not well versed in at all.
I was not going to touch that at all.
Yeah, so
I'm going to be honest with you.
Yeah, I agree with you because
I have no interest.
The only reason I bring it up is because when I was watching this last night with Stacy, and because she knows the Bible quite well and she becomes superstitious with this kind of thing, which is a surprise to me, was saying all these things like, oh, this is accurate to the Bible. This is what the Bible would do, and I'm like, oh, that's kind of interesting. I'm like, specifically what part? And I'm like, okay, that's kind of cool, because I'm like, I don't. When I told her, I'm like, this is a comic book film, and she's like, wait, what? And I'm like, yeah. It was like, yeah, it's one of those things. It was like, oh, I thought this was a reimagined version of the angel Constantine, and I'm like, well, yeah, that's kind of what DC does. I mean, kind of like what Marvel did with Hercules. Like, you know what I mean? It's just like, yeah, it's a Marvel character, but it's also got this.
Well, it's a DC character, which also
DC
is
a comic book character
which is an issue I have, because they're like, when Shia LaBeouf is like, how come I can't work with you? He's like, you're my sidekick, like Tonto or Robin. I'm like, but you are in the same universe as Robin. Like, you can't just throw out like a fake one and a real one at the same time. But anyway, also apparently they use the same Spear of Destiny prop as Hellboy. But I don't remember the Spear of Destiny being in Hellboy.
I don't remember that either.
For as much as I like that movie, and maybe they just didn't call it the Spear of Destiny.
Right.
But for much as I like that movie, I don't remember that being in it. And it's probably at the end of the movie where they stab him and stuff. I don't know. Maybe that's...
and was it specifically referred to as the Spear of Destiny, or is that something
remember.
like one of those Easter eggy kind of things that we would some people would have found out about, Because I'm always sure there's always and diving into the lore, the source material, it's always going to have those kind of things where it's like, oh, this is referencing this. I'm thinking of all the stuff that Snyder does, all those little Easter eggs that he drops in. It's like, oh, the shape the glass was broken in is referencing this. You're just like, well, who the hell would know that unless you're deep diving into that kind of stuff, right? So I feel like there's a lot. I think
that's where the fans of this movie come from. Is
I believe so. Yeah.
Anyone who's like, oh, this is like that story in the Bible, and I'm just reading stuff the rag he uses to fend off the demons when he's with Rachel Weisz and
Yes.
the first time is like Moses's, like it's
The Shroud of
material from
Moses, right?
Moses's
Yeah.
like frock or something, and I'm like, yeah, like that's
Yeah, I would
how
never.
would I know that?
Yeah, I would never know that being a non-religious person, but like apparently the scene where he um in the bathtub, like basically kind of gets Rachel Weisz to go into the demon world and all the crossover and all that kind of stuff. It's like I can't, and she made a very very specific. I was like, I can't believe how like biblically accurate they've been with this. And I'm like, okay, well, I mean, I wanted her to explain more, but at the same time, I didn't want her to talk throughout the movie, so I didn't
Yeah.
get a chance to do that because like it's one of those things where I found in this relationship where if we talk to the movie, I just got to reverse in this kind of thing, so it does fundamentally affect my ability to enjoy some of the movie itself. But like those kind of things, I think the people that genuinely enjoy this movie have those kind of things to kind of reach into and being like, oh, this is really really cool because this is like a really creative way to reimagine this biblical story, and I think that's where a lot of people get a lot of enjoyment out of this.
Hmm. So
Yeah.
my main thing of what like doesn't work for me is basically it's Keanu Reeves. I think it might also have something to do with the director, who I feel like outside of those two examples I gave takes really interesting topics and then seems to like take out all the fun elements of them, so
Mhm.
that it feels more like homework to watch it than it
Right.
does like an interesting thing. But I think Keanu Reeves, like outside of the fact that um John Constantine is British,
Yes. And
a
he's
blonde
supposed to be
guy that
blonde,
wears
right?
like a brown trench coat,
Yeah,
and they just
he's
decided
got
like,
a
nah,
stick.
just make him look closer to the Matrix with the black stuff.
Yeah,
Um,
they were just, yeah, he's supposed to be English, and he's supposed to, you know,
so like
everything
outside
was
of any of that,
yeah,
I also feel like fundamental to the Constantine stuff, and I'm basing this off of what I've heard people say they like about Hellblazer
right.
and what I seen Matt Ryan do on like Legends of Tomorrow, is like
Mm,
he's more of an asshole, like cocky
yes.
guy. Like he's an interesting character to be around. Like that, like I compare this to Hellboy because I think both of them are going deep into like folklore, or I shouldn't say folklore, but like
Yes.
deep into like Christianity as well as some other like occult stuff.
Mhm.
Like they both are dealing with religion, the occult, um, except for like outside of Hellboy's look, I think we
Mm,
both agreed he was an interesting character to be around. Like it
correct.
was, we were both able to be like, I don't really get the other stuff they're doing, but at least I'm enjoying the very personal story of Hellboy and what
Yes.
he wants and what he's trying to accomplish. Like I get that in this movie, Constantine wants to save souls so that he can get into heaven, but I'm like, I just feel like they told me that. Nothing about what Keanu's doing like makes me feel like that's an urgent thing for him, or
Correct.
like he's
Yeah.
actually like it's just like, okay, fine, yeah, I take your word for it, that's what he's trying to do because characters have told me that's what he's trying to do.
Right.
But
And
like
yeah.
unlike Hellboy, where like almost everything Hellboy does, you're like, I get it, like he really wants this normal life. He doesn't want to be the freak in the room. He
Right.
wants like everything he does is part of that
Yeah. And
mantra. This is kind of just like, I don't know, he just seems like he's sad all the time. Like
he does.
he doesn't even enjoy doing this, I almost said circumcision, he doesn't even like doing the he
Exorcism.
doesn't even like the exorcisms. Like I'm like, so, and that's my big thing, is like I'm not really into watching people not like what they're doing.
Correct. Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, like if he doesn't like any of this, then like I don't know, like it feels shitty that we can't have more of Shia LaBeouf who likes doing this, or more
Yes.
of Tilda Swinton who's like
Mhm.
at least having fun with her role, or like Gavin Rossdale. Like I don't think he was a great actor, but like that's a character that's interesting every time he's on screen. Like it
Yeah.
seems like there's something you can learn about him while he's doing whatever he's doing.
Or even like Digimon Hansu, like every time
Yeah, like
he
there's
shows
just
up in
all
a
these
scene, I'm like intrigued by what he's doing, and just like everything that his character represents is just like this is really fucking cool. But the issue with Keanu Reeves in this is that first of all, this is the first film starring Keanu Reeves where I was less than enthusiastic about. Like I was enthusiastic that he's in the lead role because I love Keanu Reeves, but the performance that he gives here is something that is just not enjoyable to watch, because my biggest thing is I was lost throughout a lot of this movie, because a lot of this movie subverts things or expects the audience to know certain things about Christianity or religion that that I don't know about. So the idea that he was like, okay, what? Like, I'm just thinking like, well, he hates everything so much. He's so cynical. He's so like whatever. Why does he want to get into heaven? Like, it doesn't seem like heaven's on brand with what
Well, I
he's
mean,
doing.
to be fair,
You know
we
what I
see
mean?
what hell is like. So
Yes,
yeah, I would
to be fair,
also
we see
just
what
not
hell
want.
is like, and
I
that's
would
not
also
the
not
better
want to be
alternative.
there.
Yes, that's not the better alternative. But the way he's going about it is like, okay, well, if you don't want to go to hell, I'm not convinced that heaven's where you want to go right now, too. But it is the better of the two choices. Why is this character constantly trying to kill himself through smoking? Like, we know that he's got cancer throughout this thing. They make a very, very clear point of doing that. But then they also like, oh yeah, throughout, like later on, it doesn't click in. It's like, oh, he's doing this to get into heaven because he tried to commit suicide as a kid. Like,
Yes.
that wasn't clear to me until the Rachel Weisz thing came up. It's like, well, she's a Catholic. She's a devout Catholic. You don't know what that means. I'm like, and that was one of the situations where I'm like, I'm glad she told us what it means, because to me, I'm like, I didn't know what that meant.
Oh yeah.
Like, truly, I didn't know what that, or I forgot at least, because it's not my day-to-day kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea of like, oh, okay, yeah, he's trying to redeem himself, but at the same time, in the redemption aspect of everything, you'd start to think like maybe your attitude going about it would be like important to it too, right? He's just kind of like, yeah, whatever. I
Well,
just do
he
this.
is like he's listed as an anti-hero, but like
Yes.
this, I think that's the problem with this movie is that, I mean, for our purposes, not
Mhm.
obviously, I think it works for people. That's why it's on this list. Like, I
Yeah.
don't like as much as I don't like it, and I knew I wouldn't like it, and I rewatched, and I was like, yeah, I'm losing interest on all the same places. It's
Yeah.
like I wanted to revisit it because I was like, I don't know, like maybe I've grown more, and I at least this time I can be like, I understand what people like about this. Before
Right.
I was just like, oh, that's just a shit movie, but I
Yeah.
get what people like. But I would imagine what people like about it has nothing to do with how it relates to the comic. Like, I'm just reading, they were like, okay, so the only characters from the comic in it are Ellie, who has one line in this movie and is in one scene.
Yeah.
She's played by Michelle Monaghan. It's when he sets off the fire, or like the fire extinguishers, and it's holy water, and she goes holy water, and it's like that was like a whole character they just cut out until that one scene.
Yeah.
Shia LaBeouf, Jaimon Hansu, and Tilda Swinton are the only characters from the comics. Everyone else is made up.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, interesting, because like they really don't want to like work with those characters. I was like, for sure the priest is from the comics, or for sure that Beeman character is from the comics, and I'm like, nope, all of this is just made up. And I'm like, okay, fair enough. And I'm just like, I guess I don't get what the point of calling it Constantine is. Like, I mean, other than we have the rights to it, we're Warner Brothers. Like,
Yes.
we can make it, but it's like you've changed everything that the name recognition would get you.
Right.
It's already your problem. It's not like someone's gonna be like, hey, I'm suing you. It's like, well, we already own this, so we can do whatever we want.
Yeah.
Alan Moore doesn't factor in because I can't remember what movie it was where he was like, oh, okay, I hate these things. I never want my name attached to it. I don't want money from it.
Extraordinary Gentleman, I think. He
Well, that was like the last straw, but there was something before that.
Oh, From Hell.
Like, yeah, he was like, nope, I don't.
Yeah, Alan Moore was like, yeah, don't attach me to this. He refused credit, and then he was
same
like,
for Watchmen.
My royalties, give it to the other creators. Like, he does not want anything.
So it's not like he's coming after you. It's just not. Like, it's one of those things where it's like you changed everything.
Yeah. And
then you've got, like, as I said, 3 of those characters. I'm like, those are very interesting characters. I like Jaimon Hansu, like his I feel like I would like him better if he could speak in his native language. I find that a lot of the time I'm watching him struggle with getting the dialogue out. And so I would much rather just watch his performances with subtitles and he gets to speak his language, but because I do feel that his intensity in things. But
I love his intensity and everything.
For the other characters, like the Shia LaBeouf character, I'm like, yeah, if he is the sidekick and he is from the comics, why aren't we watching more of him like interact with stuff?
Yeah.
And then I get that you can't have too much of Tilda Swinton because that's kind of the idea, is she just comes in and out. But like those are like great characters that you're kind of like, I don't know how much they're like integral to the story other than Gabriel. Like I would say Tilda Swinton's character from the comics is important because
Yeah.
that's the whole thing, is she's the one being like, well, you're the one who killed yourself, so that's why you're not getting into heaven.
Yeah.
And so she's giving that information. The Papa Midnight thing is kind of like, that could have been anyone, but yeah, I'm glad that work went to Jaimon Hansu, but it doesn't
Yeah.
feel like that important that it's him in particular.
Because I don't know if like the Papa Midnight character is like here's the thing, I don't know anything about this character from the comics. Yeah, the most I know about him is from Legends of Tomorrow, and that's where I enjoy this character because he's
Right,
just
like Constantine, not Papa Midnight in particular.
Yeah. Constantine, not Papa Midnight. So like I know nothing about Constantine or his universe or anything like that, or DC Dark, except for all the DC Dark animated stuff that has already existed.
Well, I know he was created for Swamp Thing. Like he was supposed to be like a somewhat antagonist in the Swamp Thing comics. That's like his main thing, and then he becomes an anti-hero.
Right.
So I get that he's not supposed to be like friendly, but I'm like, he should be something. Like I felt like Keanu Reeves was just like a blank slate most of the time.
I agree.
And everything I see from him and everything I hear about him is like, that's not the case.
Mm-hmm.
He is upset. Like he obviously is deeply disturbed, but he is compensating for it with this like other personality that he projects onto people, or like that he amplifies out to people. And it's not like this one. I was just kind of like, I don't know, like why, I don't know why anyone would talk to this guy. He just seems like a bummer all the time.
Yeah, he is a bummer in this movie. He genuinely is. And it's just one of those things where it's like, I wish everything was a bit more clear. The idea of like, okay, so we find out that he tries to kill himself as a teenager because of all the visions and
that his parents didn't believe him and
and I like the voiceover and the dialogue, because that's when you start to get something where, oh, okay, this is a character that I can kind of like, that cynical joking aspect where he's like, they did what every other parents would do, they made the situation worse.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that was lighthearted and funny to me. I mean, the delivery of the line was a lot flatter than what the writing was to me, but like that is something like, hey, where's that guy? I want that guy. Where's the dark humor? I want him to be at least like, okay, I'm trying to get into heaven now. You know, like this is what I'm doing. But you think he'd change that outlook? You know what I mean? You not have that cynical loner outlook on everything. But I mean, a lot of that too. And I will say, I think the director made that decision too. Because when
that's what I'm saying. I feel like he's really good at like flattening things.
Yes.
Like things that should be a bit more dynamic and interesting come out a bit more like, for my taste anyway, like meh. I'm just like, okay. Like I just watched Red Sparrow and I'm like, I get this isn't an action movie, but also like you're really making me work for like any kind of interesting moments.
Right. And I think the issue with this, and because when I started watching this movie, I started getting Blade Runner vibes, because it started reminding me of a noir film, a detective noir film, and that is probably my least favorite genre of film, because it's I don't get the nature of it. It's always like a hero or a protagonist that's like tortured, sullen, doesn't want to do their thing, but they're the best at it somehow, and like they're always on the last straw, and it's just like it's weird to me, because it's like it speaks about characters that reluctantly don't want to change what they're doing and don't want to change anything about themselves. So to me, it's just like, am I watching a character that's going to get by and then show no character growth whatsoever, or am I going to?
That's not
a series of events?
I think for noir, the main push is that they're getting pulled deeper and deeper into trouble, and most of their actions are creating more issues for themselves. Correct. So I mean, you may be right that they don't really want to change, but I don't think that's not necessarily character function so much as just
the function of the genre.
The way that those type of stories work is you already need to know what that character is.
That's fair.
So it's not necessarily that they don't want to change, it's more that whoever's writing it is like, there can't be that much change to this character. You need to already know who he is so that all the circumstances can change around him.
That's fair.
And I think that you're right. This definitely has noir vibes into it. That he gets dragged into something by a woman. In this case, it's a cop, so they are switching some of the tropes up. But it is
Yes.
usually a woman brings you into a dangerous situation,
Correct.
and like I think that's where it stops, though. For me, is
Yeah.
that like this? It's not like he's being pulled into something he's never done before in this case.
Correct.
This case, or at least for me, it doesn't feel that way. I'm sure that the idea is that this is the biggest thing he's ever dealt with.
Right.
But I'm also kind of like, it doesn't mean that he's changing the way he operates to deal with this. He's pretty much doing exactly what he would have done. Whereas I feel like in noir, it's like, wow, this crazy circumstances is really gonna push me to the limits of like how I operate, and maybe I compromise myself in the process, which isn't really how this plays out.
Right.
He's already compromised, so
He's very
it's only
compromised.
making him a better person throughout this.
Yeah, and it's weird to me because I don't like watching characters with a death wish or preferring that they're dead or like I don't like.
But you
that.
like Logan.
I do like Logan, but I like Logan because we followed that character for such a long period of time that he's ready to give up and he's earned it. That's why I like Logan. This is just like, okay, we're told, like, yes, he's been doing this since he was a teenager to do all these things, but then he's actively, to me, well, found a loophole to, I'm going to have my lung cancer to accelerate my death because I can't kill myself anymore. So he's found a loophole with that, which is a philosophical question that I'm more interested in exploring that than I am doing a lot of other things. Really, like trying to find the fun in where this movie is, because I just don't see it. To me, it's the tone of this movie is very, very serious, but at the same time, Keanu's reaction to the sudden escalation of how serious everything gets was never really noted to me. Like, it's not like, oh my God, now we're dealing with Lucifer. Shit. Like, now I got to step up this game. I got to take this more seriously and do all that kind of stuff. Like, It never happens like that. He's just like, okay, I'm just reluctantly doing the next thing, and all that kind of stuff. And
I think the biggest thing is that he's like, okay, I guess Shia LaBeouf can help me now.
Yes.
And then Shia LaBeouf gets killed like immediately.
Yeah, and he does so well when he helps him out too. It's just like, okay, he knows, like, he initiates the Latin chant of whatever that is, and then Constantine joins in. It's just like, okay, so the idea of like, no, the kid actually knows what he's doing. And I'm actually like a really big fan of what this kid is trying to do. He's like, look, I'm just trying to help. I'm trying to do all these things. Constantine's like, yeah, you're not
making the bullets and stuff, and you're like, yeah, like just let him get off the bench.
Yeah, let him get off the bench. He's more than a whistler. He's got the abilities to do things. He just needs a bit of training and all that kind of stuff. And it's just like Constantine just being like, nah, I'm just going to keep you as my sidekick. You're never going to do this.
And even then, he's not really using him like a sidekick. Correct.
He's just using him as a driver. That's it.
Yeah.
I mean, well, the fact that he is a cab driver, it's suitable, but it's not like he's shafting him. He's like, oh, yeah, I'm just going to use you as a driver when you are like ex-Marine trained or whatever, stuff like that. Like, we're not downplaying your role, but we're not recognizing what you can become either. That's a little frustrating, but yeah, and the fact that he dies right away is just kind of like, oh, that sucks.
But not in the post credit. I mean, he's still dead, but he's back.
Yeah, he's half back. But yeah, so I think there was a lot of stuff here that's very, very interesting to me. Like, the things I do enjoy about this is the reimagining of biblical stories as if they were real in this dimension and all that kind of stuff. The idea that, oh, okay, well, there are devils and demons, half angels, and all that, those out there and all that kind of stuff, and they're constantly fighting this battle. Like, that is kind of cool for me to see. And then especially that scene with the grocery store guy, like the guy that's
the Father Hennessy.
Yeah, Father Hennessy. Like, that scene where like you got that clerk that jumps out from behind the counter and tends to that body on the floor, and then all of a sudden you see the wings. I'm like, that's really cool. I really enjoyed that because it was like, this is, oh wow, that's really, really cool. But then they just don't give us the visuals as much as I would. I mean,
that it does seem like there were budget constraints on this, because I think that opening scene is in Mexico, but it was supposed to be in Istanbul. Yes. And they were like, we're just gonna go to Mexico, right. Which also probably means that they definitely like scaled back the scope of that opening scene as well.
Okay, well, I guess that's fair.
Because like I was like, oh, that vermin guy, like that demon that like is made out of like bugs and crabs. I was like, yeah, this movie needs more of this, and I get that you can't like do that scale of demon every time, but like the idea that like just out of nowhere they can be like, all right, we're coming for you, John Constantine. Like I feel like that wasn't used as much.
Yeah, it's
There's a
something that
lot
I
of
would
like just talking about stuff going on.
Huh. Yeah, I agree. That's something it lacks the action to make this compelling to me.
I mean,
It's
or if you're not going to do the action, make your lead more interesting to be around.
yeah, and that's where I like, and inevitably I knew this podcast would draw parallels and comparisons, not parallels, but comparisons towards the Constantine that exists in the CW universe, right? And the Constantine show. Not that I watched the Constantine show, but a lot of people do say that's really, really good. And because of the actor and the character that's played in Legends of Tomorrow, which is a continuation of that show, that character, it's still within the same universe and all that kind of stuff. Seeing that character interact with everyone on Legends is actually super fun.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of the greatest things, and I really, really enjoy it. Whenever I do watch an episode of Legends, I do really hope that Constantine's in it, because it's a fun kind of asshole. It's just like it's the asshole you love to hate.
And
that's
like he gets excited when he gets to show off with his like incantations and stuff, like which I feel like should have been carried over. And like I saw who they wanted to play Constantine.
Yeah, Nicolas Cage, baby.
Nicolas Cage, Kevin Spacey, and then Mel Gibson. And I'm like, honestly, Mel Gibson is the right energy. I don't want him to have work, but like, if you're doing it, you get Mel Gibson to do this role. Like,
he does bring the right energy.
Again, even if you don't want to get into him being British, which I do think is stripping him of a lot of stuff, but like, it's said that they couldn't get the movie made when they kept his nationality as British. Then
really?
Yeah, just no one wanted it. And then as soon as they switched it to American, it was like, okay, we're in. So fine, it's not going to get made if it's a British person, but I'm like, you need kind of like that like guy who kind of seems more like a live wire and less a guy that is like, oh, watch out, I got to save you from these demons.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, all right, great. I'm glad I'm glad you care about this too.
Yeah, like the fact that Keanu never feels like he cares about anything really in this film. He just seems to do it because it's like, okay, well, if I keep doing this, eventually I'm going to do whatever, and it's the count that matters to him. And I like that right away. Gabriel says, no, you can't buy your way into heaven like that. Mm-hmm. So it's really interesting to me, and all these like everything about this film is very, very interesting, but the execution of it doesn't work well for me. It really doesn't. Yeah. It's a shame. It really does. It is.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what I just feel like changing the actor would have really helped me, but I also understand that I'm missing a lot of stuff because of my lack of deep dive knowledge of the Bible and Christianity.
Yeah.
So I can't say it's a bad film. All I can say is it did not work for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it was because I think watching this film with someone that genuinely enjoyed it made me kind of enjoy it a little bit more. But at the same time, when I asked Stacey about what are the things that she enjoys and all that kind of stuff, she exclusively talks about the Bible aspect of this. So to me, it's not like this was a particularly good film from a comic standpoint or from just any other standpoint. I asked her, I'm like, so the action scenes, like all those kind of things, like she's like, yeah, they need a little bit of work. They need a little bit. So to her, she was speaking purely about the reimagining aspect of this is a biblical character in modern day, and that's what she thought was great about this.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much all you need, really.
Yeah, and I'm like, if I was religious, I feel like that would be a big deal for me as well. I feel like that would be kind of cool. But then I raised the question of if I was religious, it would, like, I think there would be degrees, and there's a line of which it's like, okay, this is either really, really cool, it's reimagining, or this is not the way it was. Please stick to the original thing because the original thing is our culture, our belief, our religion. Don't disrespect it. So, like, that to me is like a weird pull of like, if I was religious, would I really appreciate it more or would I appreciate it less? That's a weird question to me that I haven't been able to ask anybody, really,
That
because I
doesn't
don't.
seem like you could get a consensus on that. That is a personal thing.
You're absolutely right. There's no consensus on that.
So,
what I was trying to
like,
get
it
at
depends,
is,
right?
like,
Like, there's people who are
general
like, how
opinion.
dare they change this element of the
Yeah.
Bible or whatever, and then there's other people like, oh, that was cool how they reimagined it.
Right. So it I don't know. It just comes down to one of those things where I genuinely want to hear more about why people like this. But I do agree in this situation, Keanu Reeves as John Constantine was not a good casting choice. Based on the fact that the Legends character, Constantine, is just so much more enjoyable and so much more fun to be around. You love to hate that asshole. He's great in that regard. But like everything else about this Constantine is just like, not a big fan of. But I don't know.
All right, well, let's talk about what's her name, Angela and Isabel, the twins.
Isabel, yeah. The twins, Angela Dodson and then Isabel Dodson.
What do you think of that? I think that's mostly where the movie loses me as well. Like,
yeah,
when we get into,
I will always say that I find that the use of a twin trope to always be a tricky thing to me. Like, I think there are some things that do a twin thing really, really well, like Arrested Development. But then there are things like this that I don't feel it works so well. Like, to me, and I think there's parallels in the detective and Keanu, where like the detective here was like, yeah, you find out she was clairvoyant, she had the ability to see spirits and all that kind of stuff, and then she suppressed that, but her twin sister didn't, so she kind of isolated her, left her alone, and all that kind of stuff. I think in this situation, when we're talking about spirituality, occult stuff, and where we have a situation of twins, I think it's only natural to expect the psychic connection between twins to play a bigger role in the story, and then it's just downplayed the entire time because Rachel, her character, the cop
Angela,
character, Angela is basically like, yeah, I suppressed it, and that was it, right? To my knowledge, like, it's weird that she could say like, oh, I suppressed it and that was it, versus Constantine was not able to at all. Like, to me, it's like a super weird thing. Like, why was one person able to choose to suppress it, and then the other twin was not able to and had to be psychiatrically committed? Like, that, it's a weird thing to me. How does one twin have so much, like, and like after the death, you're like, all of a sudden you're like, wait, now you're acting like a sister, versus before, everything that was happening before, it seemed like you were kind of doing your own thing. It didn't work for me so well, the twin thing.
I didn't even get it. I think I just kind of tuned out when I was like, oh, like, there's no one to like hold on to, but like, I feel like, yes, obviously the movie is about John Constantine, but you spend so much time with other characters in the beginning of the movie, like Father Hennessy, Angela. It's probably just those three, and I feel like that Beeman guy gets a lot of play, but he's usually always with Constantine. But like, it's like there's not enough time to fully explore the stuff you want to explore with Angela and Isabel, because she is just supposed to be the character that pulls Constantine into this standoff between good and evil. But they've given her such a rich backstory that you're like, okay, but like, maybe the movie is about her instead. Like, I don't know. Like, it's hard because it feels like they bit off more than they could chew with having like, and I think maybe they thought they were like helping that along by having their stories be somewhat mirroring each other. It just leads to questions like you have, like, but wait, why was she able to? And because for me, I was like, I don't know, maybe it was just that he already said like his parents made it worse. Like, maybe left to his own devices, he would have been able to get rid of the, or like shut it down himself. But once you go in and start prodding in people's brains and shocking them, maybe you can't. Maybe it's like, well, it's just there now. Like, I can't get rid of this.
Right.
Whereas
I do like how vague it was. Like the narration was like, they just made it worse, and so that allows me to be like, okay, so I guess now he can't turn it off, he can't ignore it, like those kind of things,
or at least that trauma makes it so that he can't focus on
yes
dealing
versus
with
the Rachel Weisz the Angela Isabel situation was like, hold on, one was committed, one wasn't.
But I think that would be more like one wanted to lean into the clairvoyant stuff versus Angela, who's like, no, that makes no sense. Like, I'm going to just play off this stuff. And so then the parents would hone in on the one that's not trying to like explain away the stuff.
Yeah, to me, it wasn't about whether or not it was leaning into the clairvoyancy stuff. It was whether or not someone was able to ignore it. So to me, I'm like, how is one twin able to ignore it and the other one?
Yeah, that's what I'm telling you. Yeah. If one is leaning into it, that's obviously where the parents will focus their issues. And like Constantine, they would make it worse for that one.
Yeah, I guess my
one that was like, I'm just going to ignore this stuff.
Right. Because I guess my misunderstanding is the use of lean into versus lean into to me means more enthusiastic engagement versus what I'm basically saying is like, no, like one twin wasn't possibly able to ignore it. Versus
but
the other
she
one
didn't want to, I would imagine. She didn't want to ignore it. She would have been like Constantine. This is what I'm saying. Their stories kind of mirror each other. So it's like Constantine wants answers to this, whereas as I assume Isabel would, whereas Angela can just be like, well, I just don't care because this isn't a real thing. Like I'm just gonna ignore it. That would be my takeaway from it. I don't know that it was just Angela had the willpower to just shut it down. It's more she didn't give it as much credence as Isabel did, making the parents worry more about Isabel.
Fair. It's just interesting to me that if you ignore it long enough, all of it can go away. Like that's the interesting thing to me. But I don't know. It's very interesting because one of the first scenes in this caught my attention, and then it just gradually started to decrease its attention to me. Like the idea, like the first scene where they're in Mexico and they find the Nazi flag around the blade and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, like all that stuff. Like, oh, he gets hit by the car. I'm like, oh shit, what the hell is happening here? Like, this is really, really cool. Like right off the bat, okay, we got something going, and then it just kind of peters off from that point. I'm like, okay.
Well, it takes so long for him to return and be at the end of the movie where he's like fighting her in the pool, and I was like, oh, that's the guy from the beginning of the movie. Like, it seems like you needed to track him more. Like, and I think that was also my thing. I was like, so wait, who is like the big villain? Because they kill off Gwen Stefani's ex-husband like really soon for me, maybe not soon for other people, but I was like, oh, he's dead already. I thought that was the whole thing, is that like he's on Constantine's heels and he's like gonna be the next Constantine, and he's like, I'm just waiting for you to die. But there's like, no, he's just dead now. Okay,
yeah, no,
so
it's
not him.
The Balthazar guy was just like, wait, I thought he was the main guy, and then Lucifer shows up, and you're like, well, of course Lucifer's the main guy, but then you also understand that dialogue between earlier in the movie where he's like, oh yeah, God and the devil have a bet.
Yeah, so like they can't really get involved either. It's kind of just
not
like
directly, yeah.
It's just like, I just want to see how this plays out because I got money riding on this.
Yeah. So the when Lucifer shows up, you're like, well, this Lucifer guy can't possibly be the bad guy of this. He's restricted. He has to maintain the integrity of the bet. So you're just like, well, what the hell is actually happening in this? Like the finale, I'm just like, it was a very underwhelming finale for me.
Yeah.
And it was
Did I just miss that they like were building up the guy with the spear? Like, did he have a lot of scenes that I just wasn't paying attention to?
I don't agree. Like the scenes that you see him is all about him traveling, and it's never him interacting with many people. He's like clear got a beeline from finding that thing towards getting to Constantine. Like that is the mission, and there's no interaction. It would be so
like they didn't build him up at all. Like he doesn't have lines where he's like screwing people.
Yeah, to me, it's like, okay, what movie can we compare this to? And Venom is one of the things I think about, where the symbiote is traveling through the people, and the people interacting and all that kind of stuff. Like that to me was at least interesting, where you're seeing the symbiote like use different things and like interact with all those kind of things. Like from Mexico all the way to LA, I would have liked to see, for example, that guy, for example, get stopped at the border and have law enforcement detain him or whatever, and then power through that and then be like, okay, this is a big deal. Like he's got a mission, he's got powers aside from just being impervious to being hit with stuff. Like, this guy's a threat. Like, there's something going on with that guy. I would have loved for that kind of stuff to happen. Instead, what we see is him walking, and then you see a sign that says like LA in 126 miles or something like that. So you don't really see that kind of building threat. You're just like, this is a guy that has a relic that got hit by a car, destroyed the car, and kept walking. That's what we know.
Yeah, because I feel like they didn't like there wasn't even like an element of like, oh, it's taking him over. It's just like, no, he found it, he's done. It's like, that's it.
Yeah.
He's as powerful as he's gonna be. He's as corrupted as he's gonna be. Like,
there was
he's
no,
basically not even there anymore. Like, this isn't him anymore. It's just the spear.
Yeah, and there was no
like, oh,
clear thing like that. There was no like, oh, I grabbed it, and there's this animation or whatever. Of, like,
there is that. Yes,
there
is.
Oh yeah, yeah, there is. I forgot about that. But
I mean, it's not a huge thing, but the stuff happens with his eyes, and there's music, and like there's a big deal made that like the spear has done something to him.
Yeah, and I think that's another thing I don't like, and that's why I don't like the noir genres, or like a lot of like shows like Downton Abbey or like The West Wing or stuff like that, where you really have to pay attention to small little things in order to get.
You don't like that?
I don't like that.
Oh.
I hate it. I hate it.
I prefer that. I like stuff where you have to lean in and like it pays to like rewatch stuff and catch stuff.
No, I like stuff that you can lean in and get more out of if you want, but I hate the things that are so nuanced that you have to do that. Like like Parasite being one of those movies where, because I know a lot about Korean culture and I know a lot about these things, it came very, very naturally to me, and I had to. And then when I explained it to you, like after the fact, you're like, "Oh, okay, that's really, really cool from a Korean culture standpoint." It builds into the movie, but it doesn't prevent you from stopping the actual movie if you don't know those things. Versus like in Downton Abbey, if like a word was used, and I'm just like, what does that one word mean different than the other word? I'm just like, it's those nuance, those small little things where I'm like, oh.
I would argue that the same thing is for Parasite. Like you get with context that like, even if you don't know the dictionary definition of that, you get what's happening contextually from that word being used. Same way
but what
that
I mean,
I can get from context clues what's obviously I don't get the deeper cultural meanings for Korean stuff, but in terms of me enjoying the story, I have all the information I need.
Yeah, what I'm saying is like stuff that's so heavy into that, like Downton Abbey, it prevents me from actually enjoying it because I'm just like, all of a sudden something happens out of nowhere. I'm like, where the hell did that happen from? And then people are like, well, 3 episodes ago she said this, and she like tipped her hat this way instead of this way. And I'm like, oh my god, man, I don't like like stuff like that is really, really, really hard for me to really get into. Like I want it to be a little bit easier for me, but that's just me. That's not me saying like, oh, I hate Downton Abbey. I'm just like, it's just not a show for me. Yeah,
I get that.
Yeah, and those elements in this prevent me from liking this more.
Yeah, I think as you said, the only thing that would help me for this is if I had the same knowledge base biblically, because I don't find that I don't think either of the 2 leads are interesting.
No,
I like Rachel Weisz, but I'm not I don't really care about her.
I don't care about Angela Dodson, but I like Rachel Weisz. I don't care about John.
That's what I'm saying. I like the actor, but the character, I'm like, meh, I don't care, and I don't care about Constantine.
Yeah,
and I feel like the movie is forcing you to like care about them because there's no. It's hard for me to word this, but like I didn't feel any kind of external threat other than like what they are dealing with. So like she's trying to solve this mystery of the death of her sister. He is trying to get into heaven. Like that seems to be the main push for all of this. So if I don't care about those 2 people, then those 2 things don't mean much to me either.
It's true.
And then like there isn't like this overarching like bad guy that's looming in, and at least you can have fun with him because as we said, like he kills that like bug demon right away. Basically Gavin Rossdale gets killed like the only time he actually tries to interact with them in a menacing way. And then I was really confused with the whole devil and Gabriel stuff, but I was just like, to be fair, at this point I wasn't paying attention, so that's why this isn't really landing for me. And you're just left with like, so like, aren't you happy that she got closure on her sister? And happier about life, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, because and even then I tuned out by that point. It's just like so to me, Rachel Weisz's or Angela Dodson's character, her goal and mission is to get her sister into the Catholic part, like
She needs it to be ruled as a murder instead of a suicide.
Correct. In order for her to technically be getting into heaven and all that kind of stuff. So that's her primary pull in this whole thing. But I tuned out so much with her story because I don't even care about it so much that it's just like, did you even get that in the end? I don't know. Did Angela, like, did she get that? And was like the
well, I think what she got was more just like she is now understanding of what that was when she was a kid, and she can't deny it anymore. And so I don't know what happened with her sister if she went to heaven, but I feel like you can have a little more peace knowing, like, I don't know, like maybe I can take her to heaven now that I've got like I've been to the other side of it. I don't have to worry about like these rules. I could just be like, well, no, I'll take her or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what she got. To your point, I don't know, but I don't think the movie doesn't tell you. I just think we both tuned out.
I do remember now because Constantine was like, yeah, this is my trade. Just let Isabel go to heaven. Like that was it. Like in the final.
Okay, yeah.
So that was it. So she does get to go and all that kind of stuff. But to me, it's weird because it's just like her, like that was her mission. That was her story. And you never really get a sense that Constantine and Dodson are like really forming a relationship.
Well, they are. The movie wants you to think that, because I remember even Papa Midnight's like, oh, don't tell me you're doing this for a girl, while he's like suiting up, and he's like, well, it's only partly because of a girl. Like the movie is showing you all the stuff that makes you believe like they're romantically, but I think, yeah, you're right. Like he's the one that sends her to heaven, and maybe that's more like his speed. So instead of stopping people from dying, it's more like helping them transition to where they should be.
Because to me, it just feels like Constantine figured out, okay, it's not about the number, but the act of what I'm doing or the value of the act. So instead of being like, oh, okay, it's instead of quantity, it's about quality. So
it's helping someone else, not him directly.
Like he's like, oh, I'm helping the sacrifice and all that kind of stuff. I sacrificed this, and then he got into heaven, and then what I thought was personally pretty interesting was the fact that the devil was like, yeah, no, you're not okay, sure, but I'm going to take this cancer away from you. You're not going to die, so hopefully you'll screw up again. I thought that was really weird.
I remember him taking the cancer out and being like, okay, got it.
Yeah. It was like, now you can't go to hell.
Right, and then he stopped smoking, so he won't get cancer again.
Yeah. And then he has that monologue. He's like, oh, it took me the second time almost dying to figure out I'm like, come on, man. You figured it out the first time. You just got reminded the second time. It was just, this is what I mean. Like, this is a character that doesn't really get a character change. Like, it's not like, oh, now I'm going to do this. It's just so.
Well, I mean, I'm not really interested in watching that happen for a comic book character, which she is, because the nature of comic book characters is you need to know who they are so that each time they get into a situation, you know what's going to happen. So on that front, I can't help you on that. I don't think I don't think you can point really, unless you're talking about the MCU where they treated it like a 25 movie long thing to see.
No, what I meant is that I would have liked him toward the end of the movie to be, now I know why I exist. Now I want.
But he does know.
He does, but he's still reluctant to be like, he's still not having fun with it. He's not being like.
I mean, he's not having fun with it, but we've already established that's kind of just the take Keanu Reeves is going to have. But he is aware of what he's there to do now.
Yes, but there's no enthusiasm behind it, and that's what bothers me. It's just like flat the whole time through.
Yeah, I mean that we've already said that comes down to the director and actor. I think that's not necessarily what was written, because you could still write it where that he seems more hopeful about things. But again, we're talking about a comic book character.
Yes.
And at least the writers knew that's what they were trying to do. So I don't think it makes sense to have that much change unless you're saying this is the last story we're ever doing with him.
Right. Which clearly they weren't, because if they leave that trailer in, they clearly wanted a sequel. And apparently Reeves wants a sequel too. He recently in an interview he said, yeah, I'd be down to redo a sequel to Constantine.
I mean, I feel like with all these things, like, what are you gonna say? Like, no, please don't give me more money. Like, yeah,
Well, I
of
mean,
course.
ask John Boyega. He's like, no, I'm done with Star Wars. You can't get me back.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. He had a terrible experience.
Yes, he did. Yeah.
Keanu Reeves didn't have a terrible experience doing Constantine. There's a difference. Like, there's the mental health of being like, no, I'm not doing Star Wars again.
Yeah.
Versus the like, yeah, okay, you still want to pay me to lead a movie? Sure, I'll do it. That's the thing. Do you think they would let Finn lead a movie? That's
No.
a different exactly. Yep. So then no, there's no point.
Yep. True. Yep. Yeah, that's not a good comparison. But yeah, this movie is definitely, I get why it's a cult classic. I get why like certain people would love it because it's like giving them exactly what they want out of this. Right?
It's got a great look to it, I feel like, and we keep saying it, but it's got all those deep cuts, or maybe not even deep cuts for other people, but like it's got almost a captive audience of people being like, oh, I know these stories. Now you're like making it a movie. Like it's why certain people will be like, oh, sick, they're finally doing Infinity War. Like they're going to do like the Thanos. It's like, cool. Like this is stuff that I grew up on and now I get to see it on the big screen.
Yeah. This is it was not an enjoyable film for me to watch. I do like the Constantine that they create in the CW universe. That's a fun Constantine. That's a Constantine I want to follow. That's a Constantine that I can watch a whole season of. This is a Constantine where I couldn't wait for the movie to end. Because I was just like, I got to review this, I got to pay attention to this, but I'm not enjoying this whatsoever. One thing I will say though, ever since we had a very recent off mic discussion of Shia LaBeouf and his acting and all that kind of stuff, I did pay attention to his acting this time around, and I will say you bring a lot of good points to what he does. His awareness of what he's supposed to be in those character roles. He is very, very aware of what the character's supposed to be. And that's why, because he kept doing that, because he was regularly cast in those roles, he kept doing that for a while. I dismissed him. And to be fair, I don't really put a lot of weight on a lot of things that Michael Bay does, except for, I'm going to have a lot of explosions and this is going to be ridiculous. So I just turn my brain off. I'm like, I'm just going to enjoy this right now, right? But when I dig into what LaBeouf is doing, I'm like, oh my God, yeah, he's got some chops. He's got really good chops on him, and he's doing some really, really good stuff. And we were having like a lot of discussions about his performances and roles outside of the Transformer stuff, and where he's.
And I feel like he actually has an arc in this movie. Like, you see him as like not annoying, but just the sidekick, like the plucky sidekick.
Yeah,
then
he's not annoying. He's just eager.
Yeah, and then he shifts into like, I actually know what I'm doing. You should take me seriously. And then he becomes like almost Tilda Swinton levels at the end, where he's like, yeah, I got this. I'm out of here. I got my wings.
Yep.
So there's a character that changes. That's nice, I guess.
I did like that because I enjoyed his character throughout the whole film more than Constantine's character, and that's a problem. Like.
Especially since he doesn't have that much screen time, so you're like starving for like anyone that you can like. But sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. What you like?
No, that's it.
But yeah, I think he is a good actor.
Yes, I agree. I've been sold on that now.
Yeah, I get why people like to make fun of him because he had the public antics, which again, when you see movies like Honey Boy, you'll understand like it was just a matter of time before he was having those kind of public outbursts and stuff.
And that movie has now become one. It's moving up the list of my things to watch.
I love that movie. I really like Peanut Butter Falcon, but like Honey Boy, I don't know what it is, but I really like that movie. But yeah, it's just when you're just like, like he had a performer as a father. Like I think his father was like a clown or something, but like it was that stage dad thing that probably from an early age made him like not just be on cruise control when he's on set. Like it made him like actually be like in the moment and like, or at least be like, I know what movie I'm in. Like we said, like he knew what movie he was like. He's not doing the same thing he's doing in um Transformers in
No.
this. I get that Transformers comes after this, but like
Yes.
he's not doing the same thing. He didn't do this. Maybe he did sort of the same thing in iRobot a little bit, but like this is a different performance. And the
Yes.
only reason people think he's the same is because there's so many Transformer movies that he's in. He's in like 4 of them or 3.
Yeah.
Just 3 probably, but like that's a
I think-
lot of movies to be like to just make your opinion like, oh, that's just Shia LaBeouf.
Yeah, and to be fair, it's just like, and this is what I mean with the self-awareness of this, is that to me, his acting choices here are really, really solid because he's like, oh, okay, look at the rest of the movie. Like, look at the energy of the rest of the movie, and he picks it up in a way that's not over the top, and it's not, he doesn't add anything, he doesn't take away from it, but he does shine when he's on screen. This is really, really good. In Transformers, when he's like over the top and doing whatever, the whole movie is over the top. So why wouldn't he just match that energy, right? It's like, to me, like a mismatch would be like Tara Reid in Sharknado taking the role seriously, or trying, like debating whether or not Tara Reid is taking the role seriously, or whether or not she's acting over the top. It's just one of those things where it's like, no, he's matching the energy of the movie. He's bringing something to the movie to mellow it out, and I really appreciate that in this one. Yeah, because you were like, pay attention to him in this one, and I'm glad I did. It was really good.
I just meant like he's good. I don't actually know if I didn't know if I thought he was good in this. I just know that like he's not on cruise control is the best way I can put it. Like
Yes.
he matches what he's in very well.
Because what was that Moonshine film with him and Tom Hardy? Lawless. That was really, I loved him in that. That was great. He did some really cool stuff there. Yeah. But anyways,
and he's different in Fury, which I didn't like, but he's different in that too.
Yes, yeah, I didn't enjoy Fury as well, but he's very different there. But anyways, yeah. So this movie, what would have made it better to you?
Different actor. Like, I don't know, like who you get. Like, I was thinking, like from the beginning, I was like, I don't know, like if Martin Freeman was in this, maybe again, I wanted it to be a British person, one. Or for him to even look like the character from the comics, like
yeah, because in the comics he's blonde, right?
He's blonde. He's got a brown trench. Like he looks more like, not obviously, but he looks more like that Beeman character, like the guy, like that guy that did have the brown trench coat and like came in. And I was like it's weird that they like acknowledge that, but also like, but not this Constantine. But Martin Freeman, the guy who plays like, Tim in the British Office, or now he's like Agent like Everett or something, the guy
Everett
that
Ross.
Yeah. That guy. Like I was like, I don't know, like maybe it should have been him.
I mean, that's a pretty solid choice. I didn't think about who it should have been. I just like
I know they're not, and I, even though I said Mel Gibson was the right idea, I still don't want it. I wouldn't want it to be him. I'm just saying, like,
I don't want him.
If you could get anyone that can do what he does without being who he is, then yeah, do that.
Yeah. And
if you're not even worried about, again, this is timing stuff. I get that this person isn't as big of a star then as he is now, but like, if you're not worried about him looking like the character from the comics, then yeah, Idris Elba. Like I like someone like that, where at least you're like, this guy has charisma on screen, even if he is going to be a bummer.
Yep.
Like I get that when people say you can't change the character, they just mean I don't want black people to have roles. But like, arguably making him American and then changing his look is way more detrimental to the character than what race he is. Because I can still give you this British black person that will bring exactly what you like to the character, to this role.
Yeah, it's because, forgive me, but whenever I hear biblical things, I automatically assume that it's going to be a better setting if it's in Europe, or if it's European characters and all that kind of stuff. Because to me, that's where it all started, right? So it's just like, okay, we're going to have relics, we're going to have all those kind of things. Why are they in Mexico? Why, you know what?
I mean, the answer is because they couldn't, like, and I mean, does that character talk? Like, I guess they talk at the beginning, right?
Yeah, I'm not too sure. I can't remember.
They could have still just been like, I guess this is Turkey. Like, I don't know. Like, nothing to me said like, oh, this is definitely a Mexican person. But other than the language they speak,
be like, okay, this makes more sense.
But I mean, they spoke, and again, I'm not like mad that those
Yeah.
actors got the role, like, because to me it doesn't really matter. That character
Mm.
gets sidelined so hard, it doesn't matter where you put it. But you're right, like it could have been set in Europe, but I feel like the problem the script had always was we don't want this to be
Yeah.
a European story. Once it became American, everyone was like, all right, we're on board, here's your money.
And that's where this doesn't work for me, because it's just like the history of the religious stuff isn't so closely tied together with America as it is with Europe, effectively.
I mean, sure, but I get that when you're doing it as in modern times,
Yeah.
As we can see with even presidents like George Bush, a big part of it is religion. Like, and a lot of Obama was fighting off, not that he should have to, like, claims that he's Muslim instead of a real Christian American. Like, so setting it in America doesn't do as much damage as I think you're saying, because it is still a country that uses that stuff
No.
specifically for them. I get what you're saying. The relics are tied to Europe, but what I'm
Yes, the
saying is
relics
this
and the
movie
history
isn't
like that, and the settings.
this movie isn't really concerned with the past that way. It's concerned with bringing all of this stuff to modern day, which I understand. So in that respect, yeah, I understand that a setting like America connotes like being modern more than having it in a European city.
Yeah, because the first scene where you see the Filipino girl possessed and all that kind of stuff, and they're in the hallways and they're talking Chinese, they're speaking Cantonese and all that kind of stuff. And you get this diversity. You're like, where the hell are they right
Yeah,
now?
because some people are speaking Cantonese and then other people are speaking Tagalog, or sorry, I don't know how to pronounce it, but the
Tagalog
Filipino dialect. Yeah.
Right, yeah. So there's like a mix of everything. So that diversity within there is like, where is this setting?
I mean, that's actually something we should give it props for not being like, no, it's just the Filipino building. It's like, no, there's like at least two different Asian countries being represented in this scene.
I represent that. I love that representation. It was just like the whole, this was one of those things where I'm like, I would have loved like text across like L.A. 1994 or something like that. You know, it's like, where is this setting? I was so confused.
It did say Los Angeles.
Did it? Oh yeah. Man, this is how much I did not enjoy this movie.
Yeah, no, the first thing that's it. I don't know if they said it was in Mexico, but they definitely said after that spear scene right away, the only title card is Los Angeles.
Yeah, because I wasn't really into the minds. Oh, like we're in LA until like the guy that has the spear walks into LA and all that kind of stuff. Like
no,
the
only title card I remember is that it said Los Angeles.
Okay, that was just me not paying attention enough then. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. But yeah, it's weird to me because this movie has actors that I fundamentally love, but they didn't do, except for Tilda Swinton, because Tilda Swinton, Digimon Hansu, like these guys, like, and of course Peter Stormare as Lucifer.
Yeah, I don't know how to say his last name, but yeah,
good. Those actors work really, really, really well for me. Like, but it's the leads, Keanu and Rachel. I'm just like, fell flat.
Yeah,
it's a shame because I like them in almost everything else.
And I feel like Rachel had a chance to, again, I think this comes down to the director. I'm not saying this is her fault. I'm saying that, like, usually in this story, as you keep alluding to, that if it's a noir, she isn't like law enforcement. She would just be this femme fatale that's like leading him down the wrong path. But in this case, it's like, no, like I'm leading you to your redemption by like bringing you on to this. And the fact that she's a cop, and like I feel like there's more to play with in that never really seems to come up for me. But again, I also tuned out a lot. But I think you could have really dug deeper with her, even if you didn't want to get into her back stuff, just how her lack of faith plays into her being a cop and everything. Like, it just seemed like you could go further with that and have more of like her transitioning out of feeling like, nope, if I can't see it, it's not true. And like that whole idea that part of being a detective, at least, is being like, it's about what you can prove and less about your gut. I mean, your gut feelings lead you to being able to prove things, but like this movie is all about like, yeah, there's stuff you don't see that's happening all the time, so like you can't really operate that way. And I feel like there could have been a better showing, not telling of her transitioning back into that. But anyway, who knows?
I agree. It could have been something like she psychically picks up on something and then pulls Constantine away
Well,
from.
I don't need her to like have powers. It's more just like she just isn't. Neither of them are very interesting characters the way they are played out, and I don't know what was taken out in writing or anything, but it's just so everything they're doing is so flat that it's kind of like I'm not engaged, so I don't pick up on anything that's happening.
Yeah,
Whereas I feel like it could have been more.
Yeah, I need a bit of asshole from Constantine in order to make this really, really fun.
Yeah, I just didn't feel like Angela had a personality. Neither of them did. But if you're doing the whole like she's the normal person that's being introduced to this world, she didn't really like. She kind of had her moment of like, oh, that's fucked up, and then it was just kind of like on cruise control for the rest of it.
Pretty much. It was disappointing. Yeah. So if they make this again or whatever they do, like I'm down for the character. I like the character from what I see in everything other than this movie. The animated stuff, the television stuff, the everything about Constantine itself is a very interesting character to me, especially when we're dealing with the occult and stuff like that. I think one of the things that the Constantine superhero and comic book and the shows do very, very well is that they kind of don't lean into the biblical stuff so much, and then they lean more into the spiritual occulty stuff with Swamp Thing and Zatanna and all that kind of stuff. Like I think that worked really, really well, where you're starting to separate more of the biblical stuff away from it. At least for me, it works a lot better.
I honestly can't speak to whether or not there's more or less. I just think same with Hellboy. When you've got a more interesting character, it's easier for you not to feel like you're missing out on that other stuff that's happening, because you're at least like, I get what this character wants. I get what he's like going after, and I'm on board with this ride. So any of the other stuff becomes ancillary, and why do I always mess up that word? But it becomes beside the point in terms of what we're talking about. Whereas what this movie forces people to do is be like on board with how they're reimagining these biblical stories and stories. I already said that. Anyway, yeah, that's I think more what I would think is that like I would imagine that kind of stuff is always there. It's just because it's there in Hellboy. Like Professor Broom is very religious. And I'm sure there's a bunch of stuff we didn't pick up on where he's dealing with the religious aspect of stuff. But it's just that like we like the characters more, so we're not like grasping at anything like for a lifeline of like, well, what can I like about this? You're already like, well, I'm just in on this character. And the same for the animated stuff you're talking about. And again, in the animated stuff, he's also paired with characters we already know and like for the most part, or like that are also larger than life. So you're not like, well, I mean, I guess at least they have the biblical stuff. You're like, oh yeah, Swamp Thing, like Zatanna, I know these characters. That's interesting. And same with Legends of Tomorrow. It's more about like who he's interacting with, it in addition to being this very interesting character already. But yeah, there we go.
So obviously they had a post-credits scene where we see Chaz, which is Shia LaBeouf's character. Constantine puts the lighter on his grave and all that kind of stuff, and then Chaz is like, "Good job, kid," or whatever he says. And then Chaz comes back. He's an angel now, and all this kind of stuff. So one of the biggest questions I have is, what is your knowledge to if there was a sequel planned, and what?
I don't have any.
There wasn't.
No, I don't have any knowledge of that.
Oh, there's no. Okay, I see.
I don't care about this movie, so like, there's not. I didn't look into anything. I saw that thing about they used the same spear in Hellboy, and I was like, oh, that's cool. I saw that they wanted to use Kevin Spacey, Nick Cage, and Mel Gibson.
Yep.
I was like, okay. And I saw that they could not get it made if they were going to keep Constantine as British. Right. I didn't even bother reading the rest of the trivia. I was just like, okay, that seems interesting enough.
Yep.
So if there is like stories of what they were going to do, I don't have them.
Yeah, I mean, there is Francis Lewis is
Lawrence.
interested. Francis Lawrence, sorry, does seem very interested in a sequel to this, though. And
I
like
would imagine, yeah.
Reeves in 2019, in May, said that he's open to reprising the role in the future. So we don't know, and it's also saying in the future section in the Wikipedia thing that in July 2020, so this month, there's a new film centered around the character with J.J. Abrams as producer.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a joint production between DC, Warner Brothers, and Bad Robot.
Yeah, it's the HBO Max stuff.
Yeah, HBO Max exclusive. Yeah. So it's
because they were gonna what they were gonna do. It was supposed to be like Jude Law was gonna be Constantine in the Justice League Dark movie.
I think so.
And I remember being like, oh, it should have been Colin Farrell because Colin Farrell was also attached.
Oh, dude,
like,
Colin Farrell would be awesome as Constantine. I would definitely see that. That'd be so cool.
I guess he doesn't have the blonde hair Jude Law does. But
yeah,
the point is, either one of those people, great. Yeah, I'll watch it. I don't care as long as I really do feel like a big thing that would help is that he's British again.
Yes.
But failing that, even if Keanu Reeves did it again, he needs to not be such a bummer.
Yeah.
Like if he's doing it again, there needs to be an element of what he's doing that he likes, and that needs to be present during the movie.
I agree. Yeah.
All right, excellent. Let's rate this.
Oh God, yeah. This is you want me to go first?
I'll go first. I'm giving it a 5. Excellent, great.
Yeah, I'm giving it a 4.
Perfect.
This is not fun. I don't.
I thought you were going to give it a higher mark based on what you were saying.
Oh no, it's.
So this was at a 0 until Stacey started talking about the like.
No, I wouldn't say it's at a 0. I wouldn't say it's unwatchable. It's just not for me. So I can't discredit the things that work for other people, right? It just doesn't work for me. The things I do like about this are, of course, the when we do get the imagery, it's wonderful. Like that scene where he's in hell and you got those half-headed demon things. I'm like, holy shit, this is cool right now. But then that shot, it looks like, okay, Keanu, we're just gonna get you running, and we're just CGI it. It just doesn't seem like it's a very good interaction with the CGI at that point.
That part it does suffer from, but I can't really knock them for that because, as I read, they thought they had a budget that they never actually got to use.
So it like that to me is like, okay, like those are the things that work. So I want the sequel, if there is going to be one, to have a bigger budget and for Keanu to pick up on some of these notes of like, let's have some fun here, buddy. Let's kind of like smirk when you like, hey, let me show you this. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
I feel like his exorcisms are his time to shine.
Yeah, because the exorcism should be like easy for him, right? You like.
I don't know if they should be easy, but they should be like he should go into them being like, oh, fucking sick. Like, watch this.
Yeah,
as
like
opposed to like, okay, you do this, we'll figure this out. I don't know.
Yeah, just have him be a bit cocky about it.
Mm-hmm.
Then have like a new demon be like, oh yeah, you're outside your realm. Have that humble him, and then like that's way better to me. I'm like, that's cool, and then have him still be cocky at the end. That would be fun. He's like, hey, what's the next challenge now? Like that would be fun. I would like that. This is a guy that's just like, yeah, I know what I gotta do.
Mm-hmm. He's no. And again, we don't need it to be a comedy. It's more just, as I said, like it's nice when you see people enjoy what they're doing. They don't have to enjoy what they're doing the whole movie, but if you're going to make them the lead, I should get a sense of something they enjoy doing.
Yeah, because it's just punishing to watch a lead character endlessly try to destroy themselves.
Yeah. And since there's no villain like that stays throughout the whole movie, you're like, then like nobody is enjoying what they're doing really. Like,
it's true. And then because the thing is, you realize Lucifer coming in, you're like, oh, Lucifer. You're like, oh wait, yeah, he can't do anything. Like that's it. He just can't do anything.
And even Papa Midnight seems kind of stressed out by everything. He's kind of just like, man, like, stop asking me. I have to be neutral. Like, leave me alone. And you're like,
Yeah.
everyone's just upset. Like, what the hell?
Yeah, it's weird because he's like, oh, I have to be Switzerland and all this. You know that. And it's just like, yeah, but you make a decision pretty quickly to not be Switzerland anymore.
No, he has to go there like 2 or 3 times before he makes the decision.
Well, I guess that's fair. But yeah, this movie just doesn't work for me.
Does not work for me either. I can't say that I'm that upset about it though.
Yeah.
Just everything can't be for me. Great. All right. Well, thank you very much for listening, everybody. This has been Spoiled Rotten on thatshelf.com. If you like this, then you're going to love other podcasts on that network, like Bad Gay Movies, Black Hole Films, Changing Reels, Composers, No Budget Nightmares, What a Great Theme Song, and more. So go there. And if you would like to see older episodes of Spoiled Rotten, please go to tdfeverything.com/spoiledrotten. We are at TDF Spoiled on Twitter. Our email is spoiledpodcast@gmail.com. So please get in touch with us and let us know what you think about what we're doing. Also, we're on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Radio Public. So, get on there, rate, review, subscribe, share with your friends, and let's form a Spoiled Rotten Nation.
Yeah.
That's funny. No, I don't know. Okay, anyway, anything else to say?
Spoiled Rotten Army. Spoiled
yes, that's
Rotten
more
Army.
what I meant. Want an army. Let's have an army.
Yep.
Let's spoil things for people, like this movie.
Yeah. That's not what we're doing. That we're not shitting all the movies. We're just being like, what do we think about them?
I feel like we didn't shit all over this movie.
We did not shit all over this movie. We just said what didn't work for us, and
if
I think
you
that's
do
more.
Think we did. Let us know.
Yeah, and if we're wrong, let us know. Let us know
There's
what you
no
think.
way we're wrong. It didn't work for us. That's the only thing we said that's negative.
We're not saying
can't tell us yes, it did work for us.
Yep. That's it. Did not.
Although since I tuned out from a lot, please let us know like what I missed. Like I feel like there is just big parts of the movie where I was just like, oh yeah, this is still happening.
Yeah, I had to rewatch the final act before doing this.
Yeah.
Like this morning. Because
I did that with like the beginning part. I have to rewatch all of the Rachel Weisz stuff from the beginning. I don't
Yeah.
I
Okay.
don't know what's going on.
Yeah, me neither. But yeah.
All right. Thank you very much for listening, everybody. Goodbye.
Cheers.
This has been a TDF Everything production, brah.